Okay, I should say good evening or good afternoon. Still in New York, still daytime. 6:40 now. Today's daf is going to be daf mem ches Amud Aleph. Tomorrow the seder will be that we're going to start the shir at 7:30 in the JCM in the upstairs. The shir will take about 45 minutes, and then we'll start the program. And we want to wish Rabbi S Greenwald and his family a big mazel tov on the engagement of his daughter. Just happened a few hours ago. She got, as they say, Zolzana binyan adayad. You say that Teda mitzvah, kvi shehemu orim v'mor Teda achsidis, and a lot of nachas. The L'chaim is Tuesday night, a week from this Tuesday. A week from, what's today? Tuesday. A week from, today's Wednesday. Okay, fine. We learned in the Mishnah, Mem Zayin Amud Beis, Mishemes, second to last line. We learned in the Mishnah, Mishemes, Yesi ben Ye'ezer, when Ben Yesi ben Ye'ezer, who he was from Tzreida, and Yesi ben Yehuda, who was from Yerushalayim. When they died, so the Mishnah says, Batlu ha'ashkoles, the ashkoles, which literally means the clusters, were abolished. So ask the Gemara, my ashkoles, what does it mean, clusters? Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, that clusters, ashkoles, also has in it ish sha'akoil bay, which means that a man that has everything, like Rashi says, a man who has Torah la'amita, it has Torah in the fullest, in the truest way, and he doesn't, as they say in Hebrew, lo dofek basechel, he has Torah clear, and there's no machlekes. Yeah. Yechanan Kohen Gadol Hever. It's okay. Then the Mishnah said Yechanan Kohen Gadol Hever Hidayas HaMeiser. Yechanan Kohen Gadol, he abolished was mevatel videi ha'meisers. In the times of the Beis Hamikdash, when somebody brought meiser, so you had to say be'arti ha'kodesh min habayis, be'gam nasati v'levi. So Rabbi Yechanan abolished this whole, when you bring meiser, that you have to say the psukim. So the Gemara says, my time, what's the reason of Rabbi Yechanan Kohen Gadol for being mevatel the videi? If the Torah L'Horaah commands you to say videi when bringing meiser, so Amr Rabbi Yisrael Rabbi Chanina, he says, because they do not give meiser the way the Torah commands. Why? The Rachmana Omar, the Yehavid Leviim, the Torah says that you have to give the meiser to the Leviim. That's what the Torah says. And what happened? Daf Mem Ches Amud Aleph Va'anan, as Rashi says, in the times of Ezra HaSefer made a takana that he gave a knas, he gave a penalty to the Leviim in regards to meisers, because the Leviim refused to go from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael. So he gave a knas to the Leviim that they are not going to be getting any more meiser rishon. And what happened? Kol yahavinan lakohenim. So people gave their meiser to the kohenim. And since the Yidden, from the times of Ezra, were not giving meiser properly, so therefore we cannot say, part of the psukim that we have to say is v'gam nesati v'alevi kechol mitzvoscha. And at the end of the day, this person in that time they did not give the meiser because of the takana or the knas of Ezra. So since they cannot say the words v'gam nesati v'alevi kechol mitzvoscha, so he abolished saying it totally. So ask the Gemara, "V'loidi ashar meisers, v'lachayra, let this person at least say videi on at least meiser sheni, meiser ani, which at least meiser sheni and meiser ani they are doing like the Torah wants. So why did Rabbi Yechanan Kohen Gadol? Why was he mevatel the entire videi totally? So Amar Reish Lakish says, "Kol bias" literally means any house, which means any person. She'em misvad al meiser rishon, who does not confess on meiser rishon. In other words, he does not say the videi meiser and the meiser rishon, which has to go to the Levi. The halacha is shuv ein misvad al shar meisers, so he cannot go ahead and actually confess on other meisers. My time, what's the reason? Amar Abaye says, "Hoylo pasach be'akos tchila." Since in regards to videi meisers, that the person has to give it to the first thing. The way it works is he gives. A person has, let's say, fruit, so he gives truma, and then the next thing is he has to give meiser rishon, meiser ani. So the Ma'aser Rishon goes to who? Goes to the Levi, as the pasuk says. like we quoted before, "V'nasati lalevi lager le'yosem v'la'amanu v'ochlu b'sharecha v'saveu." So v'nasati lalevi goes on Ma'aser Rishon, and since this person cannot actually, he didn't give it to the Levi, so he cannot do vidui properly. So Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol was mevatel also the other viduis, the other vidui Maasers as well. So for the Gemara asks from here, Michlal, so what comes out based on this answer? Comes out that the Afrushi Havu Mefarshi. It comes out that in the times of Rabbi Yochanan and Kohen Gadol, they were mafresh Maaser, but they would give the Maaser Rishon, but they did not give the Maaser Rishon properly. In other words, they didn't give the Maaser Rishon to the Levi. And that's why he was mevatel the entire vidui. But what comes out from here is that at least other Maasers, the Yidden did go ahead and actually give in the times of Rabbi Yochanan and Kohen Gadol. So I asked the Gemara about Tanya, but we learned in our Brayso, Afhu. Who's Afhu? Rabbi Yochanan and Kohen Gadol. Bital Asavide, he was mevatel vidui Maasers. He was mevatel that we do not say vidui when we separate Maaser. And the Gozral Adamai, he made a gzera on Damai as well. What's Damai? Damai is a word. It's made up of Damai means Domai. What is it? In other words, it's a suffix. You don't know if these fruit, if Trumas and Maasers were taken from it. It's a gzera midrabanan. They made on Amaratzim that any time you buy fruit from Amaratzim, you have to separate Trumas and Maasers, and that fruit, till you do, is called Damai. So Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol, he was mevatel that when a person separates Trumas and Maasers, or I should say the Maaser Rishon, he does not actually say vidui, and he made a gzera on Damai. Why? The Fisher Shalach b'chol Kolel Yisrael, because Yochanan Kohen Gadol sent shluchim in the entire boundaries of Eretz Yisrael to check if the Yidden are makbid on Trumas and Maasers. He saw that the Amaratzim only separate Truma Gedela. In other words, they're only giving their Truma to the Kohanim, and Maaser Rishon and Maaser Sheni, when it comes to giving it to the Levi, and also Maaser Sheni, which we know some years it goes to the Ani, some years it goes to Yerushalayim. So he saw that Mikzasin Ma'asin and Mikzasin Ein Ma'asin. Some actually separate Maaser, and some do not separate Maaser. So Amar Lahem, Yochanan Kohen Gadol said to the people who buy fruit from the Amaratzim, Banai, my children, Bo v'Eimer Lachem, come and let me tell you that Kashem Shetruma Gedela Yesh Ba Ovin Misa, just like if a person, if a person who's a non-Kohen eats Truma, he gets Misa B'dei Shemayim, Kach Trumas Maaser Sota, when it comes to Maaser Rishon, with Tevel and Tevel Yesh Ba Ovin Misa. A person, if a Zor is going to eat Maaser and Tevel, he's also going to get the punishment of Misa. So it comes out that Truma Gedela and Maaser have the same punishment. So if a person is going to buy fruits from Amaratzim who do not actually separate Trumas and Maasers, so a person is going to be over on eating Tevel, and the halacha is anything which is not Trumas and Maasers is called Tevel. So it comes out that if a person who purchases fruit from Amaretz doesn't, and he does not separate Trumas and Maasers, so the person eating it ate Tevel, and now he's Chayav Misa. So what happened? Omad v'hiskin lohem. So Rabbi Yochanan Kohen Gadol got up and he made a takana that halakeach peris me'am ha'aretz, that somebody who buys fruit from me'am ha'aretz, and like we said, it's possible that Maaser was not taken away, separated. So mafresh mehen, a person has to separate the truma, the Maaser. In other words, Maaser Rishon and Maaser Sheni, that if a person buys from an Amaretz, he has to separate again Maaser Rishon and Maaser Sheni, in order that there should not be a chashash that it's tevel. Now, Maaser Rishon, after he separates Maaser Rishon, mafresh mimena trumas Maaser, he separates also trumas Maaser, the Levi, and what does he do? V'neistan l'kain, and he gives it to the Kohen. And the Maaser Sheni, and what does he do with the Maaser Sheni? He brings it to Yerushalayim. Now, so that's, like we're going to learn, there's hafrasha, separating trumas and maasers, and then there's the nesina. So when it comes to tevel, when it comes to buying from an Amaretz and you don't know if trumas or Maaser Rishon and Maaser Sheni was separated, so the halacha is you have to separate it because there's a chashash that there's tevel. However, when it comes to Maaser Rishon and Maaser Oni, which there's no chiyuv to give the Maaser Rishon to there's a chiyuv to separate it, but there's no chiyuv to go find the Levi to actually give it to him. Or when it comes to Meiser Ani, there's no chiyuv to find the Ani to actually give it to him. And since this whole fruit is all a suffix, it's the Mai, you don't know what the status of this fruit is. So the halach is, if the Levi wants to, or the Ani wants to extract the fruit from you, he has to bring a raya that it belongs to him. Okay. So not getting into the details of this brisa, you see from here that the Yidden were not mafresh Meiser Rishon or Meiser Ani at all. And that's why he made two takonas. What does it say? It says that he made a takona that, first of all, he said that bitul as havidoi, he was mevatel the videi meisers, and the gozer al adamai, and he made a gzerin on the demai. Why? Because they were not giving meiser rishon and meiser sheni at all. And from l'chayra, what we see before, based on Rish Lakish's answer, it comes out that the only thing that they were not doing properly was Meiser Ani, Meiser Rishon. But Meiser, let's say Meiser Sheni, or Meiser Ani, they were doing properly. So it comes out that it's a stira. For this price, it's mashma that they weren't doing anything at all. The Gemara answers and says, Tarti Tikin, really, Rabbi Yechon Zakai, he was misakin to takonas. Bitul videi mais, bitul videi the chaverim. First, he was mevatel the meisters of even Talmidei Chachamim, which we know Talmidei Chachamim are makbid to separate meisters. So he said that even Talmidei Chachamim should not, since they're not being misaken properly, in other words, they're not giving it to the Leviim, so he abolished the videi meiser even for Talmidei Chachamim. And because al demai shel am haaretz, and also he made a gzeira on demai of am haaretz, that you have to separate meisters. And this is what the Brisa says, that in regards to this, he saw that many are not separating pairs properly. So he made two takanas. Okay, then we learned in the Mishnah, he also was mevatel, he also nullified the me'irim. Frag the Gemara, what is me'irim? Omar Rachva says, al duchan, every single day that the Leviim were standing on the platform in the Beis Hamikdash saying Shira by the Karbonis, and they said from the pasuk in Tehillim Mem Dal Chof Dalet, Ura lo masishin Hashem, he quoted the Leviim were saying that sleepy Hashem, sleepy one, Lama Sishan Hashem, Ura, wake up, Lama Sishan Hashem, why are you sleeping Hashem? So Amar Lahen, so Yechon and Kohen Gadol said, does Hashem sleep? Like it says in another pasuk in Tehillim, that Hashem does not sleep, doesn't slumber, Ella, rather, so what's pshat? What does it mean, Ura Lama Sishan Hashem? But when the Yidden are residing, or are drenched with tsar, with pain, and the Umas Elim are benachas, and they're in tranquility, so the Eibishter Kiviyachol is sleeping. In other words, like the Meiri says, Hashem is not being mashkiach Kiviyachol on the Yidden. Kach Nemar, that's why it says, Ur la Masishan Hashem. But these people, in the times of Yechon and Kohen Gadol, they ki'ilu were like speaking to Hashem and screaming at him, Ur la Masishan Hashem. So he didn't like that. It wasn't respectful. So what did he do? He abolished and he said that these ma'irim who scream Ura Lamasishan Hashem, he abolished that whole thing. You should not say this pasuk by the duchen. Then the Mishnah says, "V'afu bitl as hanoikfim." Frag the Gemara, my noikfim. What does noikfim literally means? Knock, noikfim means how do they translate it? What's the noikfim? They knock. So Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel says, what are the neikfim? Shayim is certain the egel. Neikfim literally means they would pierce like a hole. So what does that mean? Shayim is certain the egel, which means they would scratch the calf. This calf that they would bring as a carbon, they would scratch being kind of between its horns. Why? In order that blood should actually go into the eyes of the carbon. Why? So that the carbon now, the animal of the carbon would be like Kiviyachol, wouldn't see, and it would be easier to bring him down to the ground to shecht him. So he didn't like that. Rabbi Yechon and Kohen Gadol didn't like that. And what did he do? Asu iyo batal, and Rabbi Yechon and Kohen Gadol was mevatel this minute. Why? Mishum de mechsi ki muma, because this wound looks like you're pasling the behema as a carbon. Really, you're not pasling, but it looks like it's a psul. Okay, in a brayso we learn that they used to beat this calf with sticks in order to bring him to the ground, to shecht him. And this is the way that people who serve Avodah Zarah, they they bang the animal, they whack it with sticks. So Yechon Kohen Gadol said, how long are you going to be serving? Are you going to be feeding neveles to the mizbeach? So the Gemara asks right away, neveles. He's saying that how long are you going to feed neveles to the mizbeach? But they're shechting it. The Yidden are shechting it properly. So how can you say that just because they're whacking it with sticks that it's going to be a nevela? Rather, what does Rabbi Yechon Kohen Gadol mean? That if by you whacking the animal with sticks, treifas, you're going to make it a treifa. Why? Because shema nikav krum shel mayach. Because perhaps we're worried that the membrane of the brain will be punctured, and it will make the animal a treifa, which will be possible for the mizbeach. Okay, then Amad v'hiskulhem tabois b'karka. So what did he do? He instituted that they should have rings in the karka of the Beis Hamikdash, and they would place the neck of the behema in the tabois, and through that, as we see in all the pictures, that easy to shecht. I wonder if nowadays, if we would have like those machines, that they turn the behem over, maybe. Okay, so ad yom hoya patish makeh b'Yerushalayim. So it says that till his days, hoya patish makeh b'Yerushalayim, which means a blacksmith would would bang in Yerushalayim. So the Gemara says what that means is b'chodesh hamoed, on Chol Hamoed. The din is on Chol Hamoed that a person is not allowed to work on Chol Hamoed unless it's davar ha'avod, which means that if, let's say, the business deal, he's going to lose a lot of money, or it's a good opportunity, not that I'm suggesting it, Chazal say that anybody who works on Chol Hamoed, ain't rei simin bracha le'elam, but al pi halacha, a person is allowed to work on Chol Hamoed, and before Rabbi Yechon Mizake came along, these blacksmiths used to work on Chol Hamoed because there was davar ha'avod. And Rabbi Yechon Kohen Gadol, he was mevatel this minhag of working even in a davar ha'avod when it came to banging the blacksmiths. Why? Because they made a lot of noise, and the people who heard the noise did not know that it's a davar ha'avod, and people would think that you're allowed to work on Chol Hamoed. So therefore, he abolished the entire minhag. He says that the Mishnah says that in his days nobody asked his friend if the food is the maik. And as we said, that Yechon Kohen Gadol is masakin, that anybody who buys from an Amoretz, he has to separate the Dmai, he has to separate Maisis, and therefore nobody has to ask his friend, even a Talmud Chacham who bought from Amoretz, were you Maaser or not? Because any time that they bought, they would be take Trumas Umaisis. Okay. Now the Mishnah says, I believe this is the last Mishnah. This is the last Mishnah, second to last Mishnah. The Mishnah says we should batla Sanhedrin, one Sanhedrin, which the Sanhedrin is the Beis Din Hagadol, which was 71 Dayonim, and as we learned, we brought from a Taisvis, but the Gemara Avodah Zarah says that the Sanhedrin, they left Lishkas Hagazos already 40 years before the Churban Habayis. So Mishabatla Sanhedrin, once the Sanhedrin was batal, so batal Ashir mi Beis Hamishtois, which means that the shir, the song, was nullified from the places, Hamishtois means of feasts. In other words, it was no longer permitted to sing at feasts where they served wine. Why? Shenemar, as it says in regards to the Nevuah, so the Churban in Yeshaya, it says, Bashir la yishtu yayin, it means that when you sing, you should not drink wine. With song, they should not drink wine. So that's what happens when the Sanhedrin were batal. They stopped, the Chachamim forbade a person singing while he was drinking wine. The pasuk says, Bashir la yishtu yayin. Now, Mishemesu Nevi'im Rishonim, when the Nevi'im Rishonim died, in the times of Bayis Rishon, which we're going to see exactly who the Nevi'im Rishonim were, batal Urim B'tumim, the Urim B'tumim, this was on the Choshen that the we used to consult with to see what the Eibishter wants. So, Batal Urim B'tumim, Meshachar Beis Hamikdash, when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Batal HaShamir, this was the famous worm, that this worm actually used to cut the stones for the stones of the Beis Hamikdash. So, once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Batal HaShamir, this worm went away. Now, the Nefesh Sufim, we're going to see what the Gemara says what Nefesh Sufim means, also was batal, and the Paske Anshe Amana, and people who believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu also seized Yisrael from the Eden. Shenemar, as it says in Tehillim, Yishia Hashem, save me Hashem, ki gomar chassid, because the chassid is finished. Okay. Now, Shimon Gamliel says, "Hey, Rabbi Yeshua testified, since the Chorban Bayis, we never have a day which is not cursed." The Gemara will explain exactly what this means. And also dew that comes down every day. You should know the dew does not bring any bracha to the grain or the pears, but rather it damages it. As well, v'nital tam pears, and the taste of pears is taken away. Says af nital shuman pears, even the fat of the fruits is also, there's no more real shuman. Shimon ben Elazar Eimer ha tahira. When the Yidden stopped worrying about tara, notlos tam v'sareach, so now the taste and the smell of the pears also went away. In other words, at the time that there was tahirim, they touched tahirim, so the Eibishter says, you're worried about tahirim, so I'm also going to make sure that there's no reach ra and tam ra. So atahara notlos atam v'sareach v'hamaisris notlos shuman hadogim. So once they stop being makbid hamaisris, so also the shuman hadogim also was taken away. Chacham said haznus. It's nus, v'akshafim, and witchcraft, kilo asakel, they ruin everything. With these, as we learned before on Daf Daled, with this sin, znus, the sin of znus, hunger comes to the world, as we learned, kol haba, alisha zayna l'seif m'vakesh kikar lachem. Akshafim also cause damage to many people, as the Gemara in Chulin tells us. Okay. So the Mishnah, the first part of the Mishnah said that Mishibat Sanhedrin, and when Sanhedrin was batal, so now you're not allowed to sing any more songs in a festive area, in a festive meal. Why? Because the pasuk says Bashir la yishto yain. So now the Gemara says Umimai de Shibat Sanhedrin ksiv. How do you know that this pasuk that we quoted is the times it's speaking about when the Sanhedrin was batal? So Omer Rav Huna b'nei Rabbi Yeshua says, the Omer Kro, what does the pasuk say? The pasuk in Eicha says, Zekenim mishar shavasu, bachurim miginasum, which means that once the skenim, which the skenim are going on the Sanhedrin, that what the skenim who sit, skenim mishar, the skenim who sit in the city, shavasu, who sit in the city. So what happened? Bachurim miginasum. They became batal. Why? So again, when the skenim mishar means that when the skenim who sit in the city, who on Sanhedrin it says sheitim sheitim titin l'chal b'chol sha'arecha, so when they were batal, bachurim miginasam, so also the bochrim who sing, also it was batal. Okay, so now he says. Omer Rav says, Udna the Shama Zimra, an ear, the ear that hears singing, Te'akar should be uprooted. Now we're going to explain, we're going to bring different shuvas of why nowadays we're allowed to, we're going to, in an hour, we're going to go to a concert, and we listen to music all the time. Some people, their life is music. So exactly what's the heter for that? If the Gemara says Udna the Shomat Zimra, somebody who listens to even singing without music is Te'akar. Rabbi says Zimra bebeisa churba beseifa. Somebody who sings in a house, he brings a churban, he brings destruction to the entrance of the house. Shenemar, as it says, Kolel L'Horaah Maasis, the voice which is in the window, which is singing in the window, chodev basaf, it causes. Chodev means a churban basaf at the entrance of the house. Ki orza era. Now the Gemara asks right away, "My ki orza era." What does the pasuk mean by saying ki orza era? Rabbi Yitzchak says, "Bayis hamesuach ba'arazim." Irhu. Now we think that era means city. So you're saying ki arza, that the cedar tree is the house which is made up of cedars. Cedar, you're telling me that's a ear, that's a city. What's the connection? So the Gemara says, Ella, rather, Eira means, it's a malashon of like churban. That afilu bayis hamesubach ba'arazim, even if you have a house which is made up of cedars, misrei eya, it's going to be destroyed because of a person singing. Amar Rashi says, Shema Mina, you can learn from him, ki maschel churva, that when a churban starts, the sipa maschel starts at the at the entrance of the house. Shenamar, like it says, chodev basaf. So the Navi says that the churban of the house is going to be lasaf. In other words, it's going to start at the entrance of the house. Or you could say from here that ushiya yukas shar, which means that through shi'iyah, which is like we're going to learn, it's a type of demon, yukas shar, the shar was destroyed. Amar Mar Barav Ashi, I saw this shade, I saw this demon in this house, and he gores like an ox. Okay, Amar Rav Huna says, Zimra de Nagra, the songs that the sailors sing while they're bringing in the boats, have their famous songs, Uda Bakori, and the songs that the people who plow in the fields, they sing, Shari, that's mutter. Why? Because the song helps them, L'tzerich Melacha. And if it's L'tzerich Melacha, the Chachamim did not aser. However, Degar Doi, songs that the weavers sing aser, that's going to be forbidden. Why? Because weavers do not need music or song in order to get them motivated to work. Now the Gemara tells the story on a bracha for not having music or not singing. Rav Huna batal zimra. Rav Huna, he made a gzeda on his, or he decreed on his generation that they should not sing in houses and in festive areas. So what happened? The economy was doing so well that the price of 100 geese now was like 1 zuz. And Umeya saw chiti bezuza, and the price of like 100 sav of wheat was like a zuz. And they couldn't find any purchasers, even though the price was so cheap. So the economy was doing so well because Rav Huna brought such a shefa into the world for abolishing music. Also, Rav Chisda zalza base. Now Rav Chisda started being mezalzel, saying and taking away music. And they wanted to purchase a geese for 1 zuz, and they could not find it. The economy was doing so well. There was such inflation because of the zilzal of being mezalzel, his takana of abolishing music. So that's what happened. Okay. Amar Rav Yosef. Okay, so basically the heter is nowadays, we learned such chumras of music, of singing, even without instruments. And in fact, in the Gemara, we're going to learn in Daf Zayin, which is today's Daf Yomi, speaks a whole arichas about music nowadays. And you see the Gemara uses very harsh lashenis, somebody who sings, somebody who plays music. So the heter is that, first of all, like the Rif says, that if it's hoylulus, if it's just tam music that doesn't bring you to any kedusha, so that's for sure asr. What shares music, and now for sure what Jewish music is trying to do, or we hope it's trying to do, is that you take psukim, you take different messages, and you try to bring that to for Avodas Hashem. So that's one heter from the Rif. And then Ramesha, one of Ramesha Feinstein's first truvas, brings out that if music, like we said, it's like, let's say for Tzarech Malacha, you need it. So nowadays, people will go crazy without music. It's like Tzarech Refuah. If Tzarech Malacha is mutter for sure, Tzarech Malach Refuah, it's for sure mutter. And Madach, the Gunim and these different, and that for sure is not only mutter, it's encouraged. It brings you to closer in Avodas Hashem, as we see, as they say, v'chein abad debar. You see this papayel that what Nigunim does and what music does. And so that's the heter. Amar Rabbi Yosef says, Zomre, Gavre, V'ani Noshi. Men that sing and women that like repeat or sing along with the men. So that's pritzusa, that's pritzus. Because a man is not allowed to listen to a woman's voice, right? Kolel L'Horaah Maasis, the Gemara says. Now, Zomri, Noshi, V'ani Gavra, if women sing and men answer afterwards, Ka'esh B'neheres, that's like a fire, which is like a rapid fire that burns flax. And as the Mefarshim explain, when a woman listens to a man, so it's pritzus, but the woman, when she listens to a man, she doesn't listen with like such attentiveness. Hashenkin, the woman, the teva of a woman, the way she sings, the man, he's much more focused on the woman singing, and he takes his ears and he listens more attentively, and that causes the Yitzhara to burn even more. What difference does it make if you're going to say it's pritzus or keish b'ne'eres? It's also when it says if you have a choice, if let's say the Beis Din sits down and says, okay, to abolish men singing with women, women singing men both, we can't do. But if we have to abolish one, what should we do? So you should abolish the second one. In other words, that women should not be the lead singers. Okay, now the Gemara brings another drush in regards to singing with wine. Rabbi Shloimy says, Kol Ashes, anybody who drinks wine, ba'arba mine zemer, with singing these four instruments, and as the pasuk is going to mention, it's like the kiner, the novel, the toif, the cholil, right? If you sing with four instruments like a band, maybe chomesh paranis le'elam, you're going to bring 5 punishments to the world. Shnemer, like it says, hoy mashkimim va'boiker sheichar, which means that they wake up. Hoy means woe to the people that wake up, and va'boiker, they wake up in the morning, sheichar yudaifu, that they're pursuing wine and beer, and then the pasuk says, again, hoy mashkimim va'boiker sheichar yudaifu, ma'achere baneshef yayin yadlikim, and also at night they're pursuing wine. And they use these 4 instruments, kinar, novel, teif, v'cholol, and the pasuk says v'yayin mishtem. But at the time of their drinking wine, they have a full-on band. So what does the pasuk says? V'espoil Hashem le'yabitu, and they don't even look at Hashem. So the Gemara explains. Maksiv acharov. So that's pasuk in Yeshaya Chavdal Yud Beis. Yud Aleph and Yud Beis. What does it say in pasuk Yud Gimel? Pasuk says, "Lochein gola ami mibli das," that they exile my nation without even realizing it. Shegoyim golos lo'elam, that they cause golos into the world. Uchvaydim eseidov. What does it mean? Uchvaydim eseidov. The next part of the pasuk it says, "Shemivin rov lo'elam." They bring hunger to the world. And then the pasuk says, "V'hameini tzichei tzoma," that they bring hunger to the world. Shegoyim lateilah shetichlakach miladim deh, that it causes Torah to be forgotten from the people who learn it. Then the pasuk Tezvav says, "Vayishach Adam vayish bal ish shegorem l'shiflus l'sene shel Hakadosh Baruch Hu." They cause shiflus to Hashem, and ve'ein ish el Hakadosh Baruch Hu shenemer Hashem ish mechama ve'ein goyim tishpalna shegorem l'shiflus shel Yisrael. So what do you see? You see that through drinking wine with these 4 instruments, so it brings golos, it brings hunger, it brings shikras ateda, it brings shiflus to Hashem and shiflus to Yisrael. Now, the Navi now explains the punishment that it's going to bring on the Yechidim Lasalavai, that the fact that they bring Puranis to the world. The pasuk says, Maksiv Acharov. What does it say afterwards? Turn over, Lachain. That's what it says. The pasuk says, Lachain here, Chiva, She'el Nafsha Ufa'ara, Pia Livli Choig V'Yorad Hadara V'Hamena She'ena V'Olei Baz, that the netherworld has enlarged her desire and opened her mouth without measure, and down goes the glory, and their tumult and their uproar, and he who rejoices amongst them. So we see from here that the punishment is that they go to basically the Gehenna. Fine. The Mishnah says, Mishnah Mesu Nevi'im Marishenim, that when Nevi'im Marishenim died, Batal Unum V'Tumim. Frag the Gemara, Mayan Nevi'im Marishenim. Who is Nevi'im Marishenim? Rav Huna says, David Ushmul Ushleimah. This refers to David Shleimah Ushmul. David Ushmul Ushleimah. That when Shlomo Melech passed away, Batal Unum V'Tumim. Now, Rav Nachman says, B'yimei David, when they asked the Urim V'Tumim in the days of David, Zimnin Salak, sometimes the Urim V'Tumim would answer, Zimnin Lai Salak, and sometimes they would not answer. Why? Shaharei Shol Tzaddik, by Shol, Shaharei Shol Tzaddik, when they asked Tzaddik, the king, in the Urim V'Tumim, so what happened? Also Lai, the Urim V'Tumim answered. And Shol Av Yasser, but when it asked Av Yasser the king, Lai also Lai, it did not answer him. Shemar, as it says, that when David HaMelech was running away from Avshalom, his son, what does it say? Vayal Av Yasser. Over there, the Navi says that they asked Av Yasser, who was the Kohen, then asked Urim V'Tumim about David HaMelech when he was running away from Avshalom, and the Urim V'Tumim did not answer Av Yasser. So he was Vayal Av Yasser. They removed him from his position. So, and then what happened? The Navi says that Tzaddik took him over. So we see that even in David HaMelech's times, sometimes it answered, sometimes it did not answer. Now, Moshe Rabbi Shmuel asked the Shat Rav Huna. It says in regards to Uziyahu Melech Yehuda. Pasuk in Divrei Hayamim says, "Vayihi lidreish Elikim," and they came to seek out Elikim in B'yimei Zechariah Amevim B'reis Elikim. Now, what does that mean? My love, the Gemara learns out that the Chayro, when it says that they came lidreish Elikim, it must be that in the time of Uziyahu Melech Yehuda, who lived much way after Shlomo HaMelech, it must be that he came to inquire with the Urim V'Tumim. So we see that even after Shloimo Melech passed away, there was Urim V'Tumim to be asked. So how can you say that once Shloimo Melech passed away, the Urim V'Tumim were batal? So the Gemara says, Loi. That's not what it means, Lidrei Shalikim. When we say Lidrei Shalikim, it means B'Neviim, that the Neviim came to seek Hashem. Now the Gemara asks another question, Tashma, come, I'll bring a raya that they asked Urim V'Tumim even after Shmuel David and Shlomo passed away. Why? Mishachar Beis HaMikdash Rishon, when the first Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Batlo Ori Mikdash. So the Ori Mikdash, which was the city for the Levium, they canceled it. Upask Urim V'Tumim, and the Urim V'Tumim were canceled. Upask Melech Beis David, and Melech Beis David also was canceled. Now, Im Lach Shecha Adam Leimer. Ori Mikdash is the Ori Levium. I think the Ori Levium was also Ori Miklat. But the Torah is telling us that we have to separate 48 cities for the Levium to live there. Now, if a person is going to whisper in your ears and say that the Urim V'Tumim were not batal in the times of Bayis Rishon, and he's going to bring you a raya from the fact that the Kohanim in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, which it says, Vayemer ha-Tirshasa, which is Nehemiah, and the Tirshasa, which is Nehemiah Lahem, Asher Le'echlu Mekadesh Kadashim, Ad Amid Kohen Urim V'Tumim. So the Chayre, you see from here that when the Kohen, that they cannot ask until the Kohen goes and asks the Urim V'Tumim, and they're going to see. So we see from here that in the times of the Bayis Sheni, the Kohen was consulting with the Urim V'Tumim. So Amrullah, you should tell them, it's like an expression and saying, when Mashiach comes, but not that implying that the Urim V'Tumim was around at this time. Now, what do you see from this brayso? That the Urim V'Tumim were batal when? In the times of the Churban Bayis Rishon, which it's a question on Ravuna who says that they died, that they ceased, not at the Churban Bayis Rishon, but when Shlomo Melech passed away way before. So Elam Rav Nachman by Yisrael Rav Nachman Yitzchak says, Man Neviim Rishonim, who's man? Who is Neviim Rishonim? Apukim Mechagai Zechariah Malachi. This will come to exclude Chagai Zechariah Malachi. The Achronim knew that they are Achronim. Torah Rabbanan, we learn Mishemesu Chagai Zechariah Malachi Nistal Ruach HaKodesh Yisrael. Once Chagai Zechariah Malachi they died, so Ruach HaKodesh now is nostalgic. And nevertheless, Hoyim Mishtamshim Bevaskel, they still used the baskel as well. One time the Chachamim were in an attic in Beis Guri in Yerichi. A baskel came out and said, there is a Adam Echad, there's one person that he is fitting for the Shekhinah to be rested on him. But the generation is not fit for it. Now, when they heard this baskel, Nosnu name Hillel HaZaken, so all the Chachamim started looking at Hillel HaZaken because they realized that the baskel is referring to him. And when Hillel HaZaken died, they eulogized him. They said, "Hey, woe to this Chassid, the Hillel, hey Anov, woe to this Anov that we lost." Talmidei Shel Ezra, he was the Talmud of Ezra HaSefer. The same story happened. Now, when they heard the baskel, they all looked at Shmuel HaKatan because they knew that the baskel was going on him. And when Shmuel HaKatan died, they eulogized him and they said, "Hey, Anav, woe to this Anav. Hey, Chassid, woe to this Chassid." Talmidei Shel he's the Talmud of Hillel. And even Shmuel HaKatan, he said, when he died, Amar B'Shas Misasu, when he died, Shimon v'Yishmael l'Charba, he said that Shimon Hanasi and Yishmael ben Elisha Kohen Gadol are destined to be killed by the sword. V'Chaveiroi l'Ketala and their colleagues are going to die in other deaths. V'Shar Amma l'Biza and the rest of the nation is going to be like plunder. V'Okon Sagian Asidin l'Meisa al Amma, and there's going to be many tzaras that are going to come on to Am Yisrael. And they also wanted to say on Yehuda ben Bava, "Hey, Chassid, hey Anav el Shnitra V'Shah." At that time, at the time that he was dying, he was mevuvel and they could not be maspid. Why? She'ein maspid al harugi malchus, because when it comes to the harugi malchus, we do not eulogize because of the Amos HaMelech, and they didn't want to eulogize, so they buried him very quickly. Shechara Beis HaMikdash, when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Batal HaShamir, the Shamir, this worm also was destroyed. Tana Rabbanan, we learned, Shamir, Sheboy, Bana Shleima, is Beis HaMikdash. This worm was the worm that Shlomo Melech built the Beis HaMikdash. In other words, these avonim, these stones that Shlomo HaMelech used in the Beis Hamikdash, they were, how were they actually cut? Was with the shamir. Shnemar, as it says, "Va'abayis b'hibonosei even shleimo masa nivne." Now, so the Gemara says we have to understand devarim kichsavan. In other words, that the house that he built was from complete stones. That they took these stones and they brought it in for the building. In other words, they did not use actual iron. They did not use a cleat to cut the stones. So now, if they didn't use a cleat to actually cut the stones in Shlomo HaMelech's times, so what did they do? It must be that it was cut with a shamir. So Nechemiah says, can you actually say this? Well, like Parnamar, it says, Kol Eila, it says all the buildings that Shlomo HaMelech built, the Beis Hamikdash, his house and everything, Avonim Yikaris Megoris B'Megeda. In other words, even in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, he built the stones and he chiseled the stones. He cut the stones with tools. If so, what does the pasuk mean by saying that he would bring these stones from outside of the Beis Hamikdash and bring them from inside? In other words, the work was done from outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Amar Rabbi says, it seems that Rabbi Yehuda says that Shlomo did not use the stones. He did not cut the stones with a kli barzel ba'avnei mikdash. So he says that it seems that that's how it was in the Beis Hamikdash. And Divrei Nechemiah's words that he did use the kli barzel, that's ba'avnei beis in his house. So the Gemara says, according to Rabbi Nechemiah, who holds that he used actual tools to cut the stones. Shomer l'may also. So what was the point of the shamir? So they needed the shamir for another thing. The Brisa says, Avanim haladu. The Avanim haladu refers to the ephod and the choshen. Ein koisvim, you're not allowed to write the names of the shvatim b'dyoy with ink, mishum shenemar, because it says, in regards to the writing of the names of the shvatim on the Avnei Hashem and the ephod, it says pituche choisem. It's mashma that you have to engrave in the stones. You have to engrave the actually words of the shvatim. Now, v'ein mesartim, but aleim be'izmo, but you're not allowed to scratch on them any of the names with ink on the names of the shvatim. Mishum shenemar, because it says mulu'asam. So it's mashma that the avonim have to be mamish full. In other words, you can't lose the mass of the avonim. And when you chisel it, at the end of the day, you're going to take away part of the stone. So what do? Ella, rather they wrote on the stones with ink, Omar and Shamir mibachutz, and they showed the Shamir mibachutz, v'heinif kois me'alein, and I guess it made the tzuras oisius by itself, and kiteina zush nifkaz b'meisachama, like a fig which breaks in the summer days, ve'ena chseda klum, and it doesn't lack anything, ukubika zush nifkaz b'meisach shomim, and like a valley which breaks in the rainy days, and ve'ena chseda klum, and it doesn't lose anything. This shamir, the size is, we had this Gemara already once, like a barley. And it was created by Sheshes Mei Bereshis. And nothing even difficult can stand in its way. So how do you protect this shamir? They used to wrap it in sponges of wool, and they would protect it very well with different tubes, because they had like a hard surface in order that it should not break. Rami says, once the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the first Beis Hamikdash, batla shida pranya, this was a type of silk. It was batla schucha levana, and this very fine glass also was batla. What? Crystal. All these different materials was bottle. Also this congealed wine which comes from snare, which is similar to like fig cakes, also was bottle. Then the Gemara says nefis sufim was also bottle. My nefis sufim, what's nefis sufim? Rav says sheilas shitzafa al gabi anafa. This is like very fine oil which floats on top of a sifter. It's similar to a dough which you knead with honey and oil. In other words, it's a very good type of cake. Levi says that nefes sufim is shtei kikares nidbakes betaner. It's like these two cakes that are connected, two loaves of bread that are connected to the walls of the oven, and with teifches of boy such a megis lezu that it blows up and they come one to another, and it's apparently very tasty. This is honey which comes from very high mountains. My mashma, how does Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi know that this is honey that comes from, very good honey that comes from mountains? So the Gemara says, as Rabbi Shesha says, it says, the pasuk says in Devarim, "Vayetzi Amari Yeshu Barahu Likraschem Vayidafu Eschem Kasher Taasenu Adevrim Kimon de Nason de Bar Yosa V'Shoitim Bereima Ilah." It's like it's like bees that spread out, and birds that come from a high place. Umasyan Dusham is Beitura, and they bring the honey from the high grasses. So what do you see from this Targum? The Torah compares the Amiroim, which come from a very high place, to bees, which come from a high mountain to a low place. Okay, now the Mishnah says, Tanan Hasam, we learned in a Mishnah over there. And this is a Mishnah in Machshirin. The Mishnah in Machshirin says, Kol Hanitzik Tar. I think we also had this once, that if you're pouring, let's say you have a cup of liquid which is tar, and you're pouring it into liquid which is tummy. So the mashke which remains in the kli that you pour from, as long as it doesn't go into the kli of the tummy, it's still tar. And when you have, it's like the kiluach, when you have the dripping, you have the stream that goes from one cup to the other cup, it's not considered like it's a mechaber, the tomei with the tardike kli, and therefore it is not considered like it's connected. Chutz midvash zifim v'atzapachim, except these type of very thick honeys, that when you pour it, the kiluach, the stream now connects the two things together. And therefore the honey from the two kalim are considered like one mashke, and it's all tummy. My zifim, so the Gemara says, what is zifim? Rabbi Yochanan says, this is honey that you could fool people with, because people don't realize that it's very diluted. It's zayif because it's a place in Eretz Yisrael called zayif. The chesiv, as it says, zif v'telef u'oles. David. My zifim, what does zifim mean? It says, these are people that falsify their shakranim and they falsify their words. Rav Lazar says, Hashem Mekayim, and this is Hashem Mekayim, Kediksiv, Zif v'telef u'ba'olis. Okay, then the Mishnah said, okay, we'll stop here. Pasuk Anshe Amana. Just see something.